Good evening and welcome to A Slice of Life. I'm your host, Jim Therinian. Tonight's subject is the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District. You may have heard of that from the annual plant sale, the native plant sale that they have. We'll talk about that later. Right now we're going to talk to the chairperson. Her name is Denise Savariot. Denise, welcome to A Slice of Life. Tell us about the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District.
Thanks, Jim, and thank you for having me. The Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District is one of 5 local soil and water conservation districts in Connecticut. And I'll give you a little history, and then we'll talk about some of the programs we're doing now.
Yeah, that would be great.
So the history of the conservation district started in the Dust Bowl era. Back at that time, as you know, it was the Dust Bowl. There was a lot of wind and soil erosion, and they created in the federal government to address this the Soil Conservation Service. And then they realized that we're going to be working with farmers, and maybe the farmers aren't going to be that happy to have the government coming in and telling us what to do. So Franklin Roosevelt decided that why don't we work with local folks and create a local work group entity that will work with the farmers. And that's where the soil and water conservation districts were started. We're one of 3,000 districts across the nation.
Wow.
Most districts are set up on county government, and you know in Connecticut we don't have county government.
That's right.
So although originally our boundaries were on a county government, now our boundaries are set up more on watershed basins. So the Connecticut River Coastal, as you expect, Connecticut River Coastal, we are the district that serves the 26 towns in that area. And we work on soil and water conservation. Now, I told you our roots are in agriculture, but we now work on everything related to soil and water conservation.
Wow. I noticed from the map that you really have a large area that you manage. Yeah,
so like I said, we you know, there's 26 towns in our district, you know, and we kind of make the lower Connecticut River and right into coastal, so we deal with all kinds of soil and water issues. You know, urban issues in New Britain and Middletown, and then more rural issues in our smaller towns, and you know, and then we have our coastal towns, so we're also dealing with coastal issues.
So you have a lot of environments, a lot of micro-environments that you deal with?
That's right. And so what we do is we work with farmers, as we said, that's our roots, but we also work with municipalities. We provide technical assistance to planning and zoning, looking at erosion sediment control, looking at stormwater management. We provide technical assistance to inland wetland agencies. In Connecticut, the Inland Wetlands and Watercourses Act is based on soils. We're the Soil and Water Conservation District.
Right.
So we do a lot of work, you know, with our inland wetland agencies as well, helping them look at delineations, looking at development proposals and what will be the impact. The importance of this is that protecting our wetlands and watercourses is important for protecting our public drinking water supply, protecting us from flooding, as well as making sure that we have biodiversity. Some of the most biodiverse ecosystems we have, you know, around the world globally are wetlands, whether they're inland wetlands, and we also have coastal wetlands. So we have both. So we work on, you know, a host of those issues. So let me just run down a couple of the programs.
Yeah, that would be great.
We work on, again, erosion sediment control. We work on soil health. That's making sure that your soil can grow plants, but also so that it can infiltrate water so that we can recharge our groundwater, but also filtrate water, where we're going to be cleaning the water, you know, so all of those types of soil health programs. We work on stormwater management. We work on watershed management, looking at the watershed. So, for example, here we've got several different watersheds.
Yes.
8 Mile River watershed is the watershed that you see kind of going up through you know, Hebron and East Hampton and whatever.
Oh,
and
way
so,
up there, yeah.
So, and so looking at the different types of the different watersheds and saying like, oh, okay, what you know, what are we going to be doing here? What's the work that we're doing? So So looking at the different watersheds and, the work that we do in those two, what's the land use? How do we protect these watersheds so that we're making sure that they're, important? So
Now, how does a farmer or a citizen understand that this is the job for the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District?
So we work very closely with USDA, NRCS. So there's a lot of programs that we bring related to them. We work hand in hand. Some of our districts across the state are co-located. We don't happen to be co-located. We're located in Middletown in terms of our office.
Right.
And then, so we want to look at giving the programs to the farmers. So we work with USDA, and the farmers are used to coming into us, but we also do a lot of outreach. We educate folks about like what we do, reaching out, particularly now we have, a lot of farmers are aging out. We've got a lot of new farmers coming in. So we do a lot of outreach programs, educating people about the different types of programs that we could do, whether we're looking at how can we help you with water quality on your farm, doing cover cropping. So there's all different types of programs we might do.
So I would imagine that the young farmers that come to you or you go to them, during that consult period, they have like an aha moment where they say, well, this is exactly what I'm looking for.
That's right. We provide technical assistance, and that's what a lot of farmers, particularly new and beginning farmers, need. We also help them access financial assistance available through the federal government. So we really work with them. But like I said, we also work with municipalities. So we work with what they call the Clean Water Act 319 program. And the 319 program is a program that looks at non-point source pollution. So that's the kind of runoff that we see running down our streets.
Right.
Just running off of, everyone's property. It's stormwater runoff. And a lot of times when we say non-point source pollution, we don't know what's in that stormwater runoff. We might see sediments, but there could also be like, oh, somebody spilled something in their driveway and now it's running down into the watershed. Yeah. Or think about just the road system, right? Everybody's, driving cars. There's oil that drips from our cars. There may be gasoline dripping, and that's where, all of those pollutants can get in. So we work on non-point source pollution. And trying to make sure that our watersheds are clean for drinking water, for obviously, in our rivers and streams that we use for a host of things, whether it be recreation or fishing, but also all the way to Long Island Sound.
Right.
So, making sure, we have a saying that if it goes on the ground, it can end up in Long Island Sound.
Well, right, yeah.
So that's when I talk about watershed management and we talk about a conservation district, we're looking at making sure that we have good water quality throughout. We also work on things like native plants. So we look at habitat. How do we improve habitat? What's the habitat? So we don't just work on water. Again, it's soil and water. But we work on a host of things that are kind of interrelated to that, and that includes working on native plants, biodiversity, making sure that we have forests that are healthy. Make sure working with residential people on their putting in rain gardens.
So like sustainability.
We're looking at sustainability issues.
Right.
That's really the types of work we do. And we do a lot of outreach and education. Right now, we're part of a film festival, and we just did a film a couple of weeks ago. It's called The Biggest Little Farm. And now that we have another film coming up, I think it's April 8th, and that one's called All That Breathes. And this is about we have to coexist with the other life on this planet. Yeah, it's not just about us.
I am a firm believer in that, yeah.
So, and that's a film festival we do with some other partners in the Middletown area. And that's, something we're very, very proud of. We also do other education and outreach programs. As I said, we train inland wetlands and watercourse commissioners. We actually have a training program coming up that we're partnering with Connecticut Audubon at the Roger Torrey Peter Estuary Center in Old Lyme.
Right.
And we're going to have a program on vernal pools, and that's for inland wetland commissioners as well as Conservation Commission members. Actually, anyone who does land Stewardship is also invited, so land trust, for somebody who's a member of a land trust might want
So
to
what
come.
would they just go to your website?
Yep, so they can go to our website at the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District. On that particular workshop on the vernal pools, they can also go to the Connecticut Audubon Roger Torrey Peterson Estuary Center website. So we both have it on our website because we're co-hosting, and they can sign up for the programs. If you go to the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District website, you'll be able to find the information out on the film that I just mentioned, and also the whole film series, as well as the vernal pool workshop. And then any other activities that we might have coming up.
And I would think vernal pools are extremely delicate in their requirements, I would say.
They are. So one of the things is a lot of times they're small wetlands. So all wetlands are important. Inland wetlands are critically important for a host of things that they do, from sequestering carbon, storing carbon because they have such heavy organic soils, to filtering water. Cleaning our water. They make us more resilient to drought because they regulate our streams. They hold water back. They also hold that water back, so help us during floods. So they kind of do, moderation of our water courses. So they're really important. Vernal pools are a special niche within that, and they're a really interesting wetland because they're defined by what lives in them. When I say a vernal pool, I'm not talking about a pond. I'm talking about a very unique environment where a very special bunch of critters live that only live in those vernal pools. So biodiversity rich, but really important to the ecosystem. Thousands of wood frogs and salamanders lay their eggs in there, and they provide food for a whole series of other critters that happen to live and hunt in the forest. So they're really important, and one of the reasons we like to do training on them is they can be overlooked. Sometimes people see something and it's small, so it doesn't matter if we impact it. So it's a small resource. And the other thing about vernal pools, and one of their definitions is that they tend to dry up in the summer. I was just going to mention that, Yeah, so they dry up, and then what happens? So if they dry up, that means they don't have fish. So because they don't have fish, they support this other host of critters, like I said, wood frogs and a whole several different types of salamanders, as well as things like fairy shrimp and damselflies and dragonflies, all use vernal pools. And they're successful because there's no fish eating the eggs. So it's a really unique. But it's also a very, it's a resource we have to protect because it's a fleeting resource. They fill up in the fall, and they have water through the winter, and then the amphibians lay their eggs just about this time of year. Some people probably have heard wood frogs quacking away. They sound like a duck quacking away. March, and actually today is the last day of winter. That's right. And so and the salamanders have migrated to the pools, and they're all laying eggs at this time. And then it's a race against time. They have to make sure that these eggs develop before the pool dries up in the summer. So it's a very unique habitat that, like I said, sometimes because they dry up, people say, it's not really a wetland. Well, it is a wetland, and it is something that's really important. Yes. I remember hiking one time, and there was a vernal pool, and then I went later on in the summer to the same area, and it was just a dried up bunch of leaves, and it's very interesting how it disappears. Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the things you'll see is you kind of notice that you go in the woods and you'll see the leaves, and it's like, but all of a sudden now you'll see leaves that are stained. And so you'll see where the water had been. And because these leaves are all stained, and it's like, oh, that means the water's been there a long time. But if I'm going to identify something as a vernal pool, and this is part of our training, we go in and document in the spring and make sure we know that it is, it's not just a puddle. It's not just something that, had water for a week. It has to have water long enough for this life cycle to happen, and that's what that really defines it as. That's incredibly critical. Yeah, so it's where a lot of other wetlands are defined by soil type, and whatever when we call it, and other wetlands are really important, like I said, critically important for a whole host of reasons. Vernal pools are more critical from that biodiversity perspective.
Now let's talk about the plant sale. You have a native plant sale generated by the Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District. Under full disclosure, I have been a customer of these native plants for many years. In fact, we're going to show some flowers and pictures of plants that I have that demonstrate the kind of plants that you have for sale. If you're curious about native plants, I would suggest you go to the website. There's just a whole list of available plants. We're going to show you tonight. Yeah, we're going to show you tonight mostly perennials, I would say.
Yeah, when we talk about native plants, most of them are perennials. Some of them are annual seeders. They're still kind of perennials because they do seed themselves every year, but most of them are perennials. I mean, they, die back in the winter and then come back in the summer, usually in the spring. Oh, wonderful. And here we go.
Here we go. So this is the black-eyed Susan. And as you can see, there's the camera focused on the flower and not the bug. But that's just another one of the many 300 or so pollinators that we have in Connecticut.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of native plants. Native plants, and one of the reasons we have this sale is as a service, to make sure that people have access to native plants, really good for your yard. Oh, and this is an example, although it looks like it might be a cricket or something. I can't tell what species is in there.
Yeah.
But so critical for different types of pollinators, different types of insects, which are really important.
Next photo, please. Excuse me. Now here's a full bed of black-eyed Susans, and this is what happens when you have one plant growing over several years. It gets to be this big, and of course there are butterflies and pollinators of every description coming here. And the beauty part of these plants is that, they will grow all summer, they will be pollinated, and then in the winter, over the course of winter, you'll get small songbirds coming to eat the seeds. Next photo, please.
And that's the importance, is they're food, they're food for the pollinators, but they're also food for the birds with the seeds. But they also, are drought resistant. They can tolerate, they were developed so that they can tolerate the hot, dry summers we have, as well as the cold winters. So that's why you use native plants.
Now this plant here, I believe, is a bee balm. Again, it is a hummingbird attractant. And the same thing, the seed head will last all winter, and the songbirds will come and eat from it.
Yeah, and this is one of my favorites. And again,
the bee balm?
The bee balm is just one of my favorites.
Very nice plant. Next one, please. Now here we have a demonstration of pollinators in action. This is a New England aster, and as you can plainly see, there's a monarch butterfly and a bumblebee pollinating the same set of flowers. And it kind of it's very similar to that phrase from that movie, Field of Dreams. If you plant them, the pollinators will come, and you will have this in your garden, and it's just a delight.
And the importance of asters and our native asters are they're a late summer, early fall flower.
Very late.
So this is when the pollinators really, before they do their migration or before they hibernate, they're really looking to get that food source.
Yep.
And you can see how important it is.
Oh yeah, it's very important. And this is exactly what you were talking about.
Exactly.
This photo was taken probably late September, early October, and as you can see, the monarch butterflies, there's actually about 7 pollinators in this picture. If you look closely, they're loading up. They're getting ready to go to Mexico.
Yeah, and and we look at that. obviously monarchs are just, the poster child for what we want to do, but you also have, a lot of other species in there. There's a lot of little bumblebees and whatever, all really, really important for our ecosystem.
Oh, absolutely. Next one, please. All right, this again, I was new with this camera and it didn't really work very well, but here's what you see. There's several colors here. We have cardinal flower, we have black-eyed Susans, there's probably a bee balm in there somewhere. And again, the benefit is to the pollinators with a set of plants like this. Next one, please. Now this is actually one of my favorite flowers. It looks very delicate, but it's actually quite strong. This is a blue curl, and what happens is a bumblebee will come to this, and the weight of the bumblebee will make the flower bend over, and you think it's going to fall off, but he does his pollination, and then he goes back, and it pops right back up again. But as you can see, it's not only the African flowers or the Indonesian flowers that are delicate and pretty. Here's one that's a Native American plant. And it's a delightful little flower.
And that's what I'm not as familiar with, and it's gorgeous.
It is pretty, yeah. Next. And here, of course, is the cardinal flower. And over the years, I have known, or I have witnessed that cardinal flower is on your plant sale every single year. Mm-hmm. And it's a delightful flower. It is, of course, a hummingbird attractant. Next picture, please. And I guess the hummingbirds train in on the red flower or the red color.
It's one of the ones they like a lot. And
yeah.
This is really important. It's a plant that likes wet feet.
Yep.
So, it can stand. So that's if you have, places in your backyard where there's wet, this is a plant that you can put there. And again, the native pollinators, including hummingbirds, are really, look to these native plants.
Yep. And next one. And this admittedly is my favorite photo. Mm-hmm. I got really lucky with this photo. And this is in my backyard in a small plot of cardinal flowers. And like I said, if you plant cardinal flowers that you get from the plant sale, you will attract hummingbirds. It's just that simple. If you plant them, they will come. Next photo, please. And now these last two photos are from a trumpet honeysuckle. Again, a primary hummingbird attractant. And what happens is this vine, this native vine, trumpet honeysuckle, is a very sturdy vine, and you can wrangle it around on your trellis. And so far, I haven't had one vine section that is broken on me.
It's an amazing plant.
Yes.
I love it.
Yeah.
And it attracts, like I said, the hummingbirds love it. So yep. It's one of the plants that we recommend.
Next and last, please. There we go. And the interesting thing to me is that you can have a delicate flower like this, and it will your hummingbirds will stop. Mm-hmm. And sometimes people will tell me that, when I used to work at the transfer station, I talked to a lot of people, I don't have hummingbirds here in my yard. And I would say a couple of things. The hummingbird is very small, it's very green, it's very fast, and they don't linger in your yard very long. And if you don't have a reason for the hummingbird to linger in your yard, they're going to zip through your yard onto your neighbor's yard. So again, if you plant the native plants that hummingbirds like, they will stop.
Yeah.
I think primarily because if you talk to a hummingbird biologist or my contact over at Roger Torrey Peterson, is the hummingbirds spend most of their life either hungry or almost hungry. And so when they see this, they're stopping. There's no question about that.
That's right. And, one of the things is we've really when we have yards that don't have native plants, when we have yards that are all lawn and don't have the diversity of plant species, that's where the birds, whether it be hummingbirds or any of our bird species. So with native plants, we just saw some great plants that had to do with the pollinators in particular, but also, we like to make sure people understand that native plants also, so native plants are things like oak trees and our understory, shrubs, spice bush, and some of these other shrubs that we need. And what they are is they're hosts for caterpillars. So although we certainly want birds to come and eat seeds and whatever, we know that from a bird perspective, caterpillars in things like oak trees are really, really important. So native species are important. Just a quick on oaks. 436 species of caterpillars live on native oaks.
Wow.
But, so when you think about the food, and even hummingbirds, when they're raising their young, they're not feeding them, they're not feeding them honey that they're taking from the plants. They're feeding them insects.
Right.
So when birds are nesting in your yard, whether it be bluebirds, hummingbirds, any of the birds, robins, some of the more common birds, when they're nesting in your yard, they're looking for those caterpillars. And that's really important. It's also, important, again, to have that food source, in the spring, in the fall, all summer long when they're raising their broods.
Right.
As well as then for our overwintering birds, some of our native plants like winterberry and a few others have those fruits that last throughout the whole winter. So that's one of the things with native plants is we want to make sure that we have plants and seeds, or food, I should say, throughout, the whole entire season.
So we're almost done.
Okay.
Can you have a wrap-up statement for your organization, Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District?
Well, again, we are a technical service agency. We provide technical assistance to farmers, municipalities, landowners. We hope that you will, if you're interested in working with us, we'd love to touch base with you. You can find us on our website, and I know you're going to put the website number up for us.
Right.
But we'd love to touch base with anyone. We service, again, the 26 towns in the lower Connecticut River Valley, and we're just thrilled to be able to do the work that we do.
I have to give you a lot of credit. That is a big area to cover.
It is. But it's fun, and one of the things that we do, because we work on watersheds that cross political boundaries, we get to bring people together to work on different types of issues that are really important.
All right, so that's the show on Connecticut River Coastal Conservation District. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any information or questions, go to the website, and I think your questions will be answered. Thank you, and have a good night.